Welcome to the Veritas Word, your premier destination for unfiltered truth and insightful political commentary. In a world saturated with hidden agendas and reprobate forces, we aim to provide captivating insights as we untangle the intricate web of deception that envelops the globe. At the core of the Veritas Word lies our dedication to honest reporting, unbiased perspectives on world events and prominent figures, and to expose conspiracies and reveal falsehoods perpetuated by those in power. Fuel your passion for truth as we equip ourselves with knowledge and confront the secrets buried beneath the surface. Join us on this expedition as we cultivate constructive dialogue, building a community of informed citizens poised to ignite action and influence change. Welcome to where truth triumphs and the voices of many stand united against deceit. Together, let's usher in an era of transparency and accountability for all. Subscribe now, and let's embark on this journey together. All right, let's dive in. We're at a pivotal moment in American history, folks. Many of us, including myself, are asking some tough questions about the future of the U.S. democracy. With everything going on, breakneck tech advancements, intense political divide, and a growing sense of distrust in institutions, we can't help but wonder, is American democracy on the verge of collapse? Let's peel back the layers on this one. Let's look at the political landscape. It's more divided than the world has ever seen. Yes, the world is watching. The level of partisanship, the dedication to parties over policy, has created a chasm between Democrats and Republicans. The result? Legislative gridlock and a struggle to find common ground on crucial issues. And guess what's fanning the flames of this divide? Social media. It amplifies extreme views, creating echo chambers that allow people to stay cozy within their ideological bubbles. When we're not exposed to diverse opinions, views can harden, making it even harder to work together. Misinformation and disinformation are also playing a key role in our democratic decline. With 2/3 of U.S. adults sourcing their news from social media, many are met with fake news, conspiracy theories, and manipulated content. This erodes their trust in institutions. And this mistrust isn't just about the news. Remember the 2020 presidential election? Allegations of fraud left many doubting the legitimacy of the results. This led to anti-democratic calls to overturn the election, culminating in the events of January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. Let's also talk about income inequality. It's on the rise in America, and with it, dissatisfaction with government policies that seem to favor the wealthy. This has led to suspicions about the fairness of the U.S. democratic processes. It's hard not to feel skeptical when corporate interests seem to drive political decisions. But here's the thing about American democracy. It's resilient. It's weathered storms before, the Civil War and the Great Depression. It has this remarkable ability to self-correct. Despite the challenges it faces today, there are reasons to stay optimistic. Movements for voting rights and campaign finance reform are gaining traction. People are eager for change, so let's not lose hope, folks. Democracy in America has faced trials, and it has become stronger each time. The nation can be in this together and keep striving for a more perfect union. Let's identify and battle the forces that put our democracy at risk. That's crucial, folks. And there are some fantastic initiatives out there doing just that. They boost civic engagement, spread accurate information, and strengthen your communities. And let's remember the tireless work of grassroots organizations. Every day they're out there, empowering marginalized communities and tackling voter suppression in underrepresented areas. Now here's the deal. How can we predict the future of American democracy? More complex than it sounds. You've got challenges, yes. But you've also got countless people fighting tooth and nail to uphold your democratic institutions and values. And it's not just up to them, it's up to all of you. Citizens across the political spectrum coming together, engaging in dialogue, and sparking positive change. The future of American democracy might be a bit hazy at this point, but let's remember, the power to navigate the nation toward a brighter future, it's in your hands. You have the chance to safeguard liberty and justice, not just for people now, but for future generations. So do this together. Let's tackle a crucial topic that's been making headlines in recent years: You've probably seen the rise of far-right movements around the globe, right? Some even brand them as fascists, given their extreme political views. Today, we're also diving into this issue, and the million-dollar question is, are we looking at a reality, or is it just an illusion? What does it mean for our society as we know it? We're going to take a journey, tracing the upsurge of these far-right movements. Hang tight, it's going to be enlightening. First up, let's set the stage with the international context. We've seen a lot of turbulence lately: economic crises, terrorism, waves of immigration, and significant cultural shifts. These events have sparked a global rise in populist ideas, leading to the surfacing of far-right ideologies. They're seen as responses to these challenges. And where are we seeing this? The European Union, the United States, you name it. There's a noticeable uptick in radical right-wing movements there, with influential political figures taking office globally. But what's the makeup of these far-right movements, you ask? Let's break it down. They typically showcase nationalism heavily emphasizes a strong national identity and a sovereign state. Xenophobia is the fear or even hatred of foreigners and minority groups. Authoritarianism, advocating for absolute obedience to an authority figure. And finally, populism, opposing the established elites in favor of the common people. Now let's talk about some notable instances of this far-right rise. Remember Donald Trump's presidency in the US from 2017 to 2021 and his massive support base. How about Marine Le Pen's Front National, now known as National Rally in France? We've seen the Alternative for Germany party in Germany, which is known for its anti-immigration stance. And let's remember the anti-European Union sentiments in the UK that fueled the Brexit campaign. But here's the tricky part. How do we figure out if this whole thing is an illusion or reality? Here's where we need to delve into media perception versus reality. Some folks argue that the rise of the far right has been blown out of proportion due to media amplification, which potentially distorts their actual influence. Sure, the far right's presence is growing, but we need to put their power into perspective within the broader political landscape to avoid sensationalism. So, how do we measure their real power? We can look at electoral results and the number of far-right politicians in office. Many far-right parties have gained popularity, but their success in obtaining political power varies from country to country. Their victories often depend on forming alliances with more centrist parties. Finally, let's not underestimate the strength of the U.S. democratic institutions. They have a critical role in curbing the rise of the far right. Remember, the checks and balances ingrained in democratic systems can prevent extremist ideologies from taking root in mainstream politics. So, there you have it, folks. A closer look into the rise of far-right movements. It's a big, complex topic, but understanding it is key to navigating our current global political landscape. Some argue that the upsurge has been exaggerated due to media amplification, distorting the actual influence of far-right ideologies. While the far-right's presence is undoubtedly growing, it is vital to contextualize their power within a broader political landscape to avoid sensationalism. Analyzing electoral results and the number of far-right politicians holding office can provide insights into their real power. Although many far-right parties have gained popularity, their ability to obtain political power varies from country to country. Additionally, their success often hinges on forming coalitions with more centrist parties. So, let's not underestimate the power of democratic institutions to stop the rise of far-right movements. With checks and balances in place, democracies can actually prevent extremism from becoming mainstream. Now, wrapping up this segment, we need to face the fact that far-right movements are rising worldwide. Sure, media hype plays a part in this, but election results and harder-to-ignore extremist ideas in global politics shouldn't be overlooked. As a society, we must foster healthy conversations and keep holding on to our democratic values as we navigate these complex issues. Today we're discussing Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States. Since announcing his candidacy in 2015, he's been a divisive figure. Let's take a look at Trump's intelligence and capabilities, his dictatorial ideals, and the potential danger he poses to democracy in the U.S. First up, assessing Trump's intelligence and capabilities. Trump's presidency showcased various qualities, raising questions about his intelligence. To understand his capabilities better, we need to consider his business acumen, political experience, and communication skills. Trump built considerable wealth through real estate and branding, but critics mention his bankruptcies and failed projects. Despite these setbacks, it is essential to recognize his accumulated wealth over time. What about his political experience? Before becoming president, Trump needed more political experience, making some people question whether he was ready for the demanding role. This lack of experience arguably affected his ability to make sound decisions during his term. It was also very much reported that Trump was a lazy president, often arriving late to the Oval Office, watching TV, and spending time on social media, not to mention how many times he played golf. Trump seemed to be more engrossed in the importance of the role of his own often mentioned narcissistic tendencies. With his communication skills, Trump speaks more bluntly and candidly than previous presidents. While some people appreciate this directness, others believe it needs more diplomacy for foreign relations or sensitive domestic matters. Let's move on to analyzing his dictatorial ideals. Trump's rhetoric has drawn comparisons to historical dictators for several reasons. With nationalism, terms like "Make America Great Again" and "America First" show Trump's focus on nationalism. This mentality can lead to isolationist policies or animosity towards immigrants. Authoritarianism. Trump showed authoritarian tendencies by challenging constitutional boundaries, attacking the media, and bypassing norms, like threatening funding cuts to critical cities and demanding unbounded loyalty from officials. Discrediting opponents. Trump often attacks political rivals with derogatory nicknames and conspiracy theories, contributing to a hostile environment. The world could see this as a somewhat childish response to areas he could not handle, not to mention go into detail about his constant lying narratives. Lastly, the potential harm to democracy. This is a big one. Many consequences of Trump's actions, and there are many, could undermine democratic values in the U.S. Erosion of trust in institutions. His fake news accusations and questioning of the electoral process have eroded trust in respected institutions among supporters. Encouragement of extremist views. Trump's support for contentious figures and groups has enabled extremist ideologies that threaten democratic values like tolerance and inclusivity. Polarization of society. Trump's presidency has deepened social and political divisions, hindering communication between different groups, which is vital for a thriving democracy. In conclusion, evaluating Trump's intelligence, capabilities, dictatorial ideals, and potential harm to democracy presents a complex portrait. While not easily categorized, his actions have significantly impacted society both domestically and globally, making him one of the most controversial presidents in U.S. history and, to some extent, a laughingstock of what a world leader should be. Trump's rise to power and its changes to American politics were truly astonishing. You can't help but think, were there hidden forces pulling the strings behind the scenes? Today, we're also going to examine some possible connections between Trump and various power players and try to uncover any underlying agendas at work. Let's begin by discussing some influential individuals and organizations connected to Trump during his presidency. These connections might tell us who could have been nudging him from the shadows. So what were some of these connections and hidden forces behind Trump's actions? Russia and Vladimir Putin. There has always been a lot of curiosity surrounding Trump's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. With accusations of Russian interference in the 2016 election, people began to suspect that Trump might have ties with powerful figures in the Kremlin. The Mercer family. The Mercers, Rebecca and her father, Robert, were wealthy donors who significantly supported Trump's election campaign. Given their financial links to Breitbart News, a pro-Trump outlet, it's natural to wonder if they had any influence over his policies. And then there was Steve Bannon. Although Steve Bannon had his ups and downs with the White House, he played a key role in shaping Trump's campaign strategy and message. Bannon's connections with groups like Cambridge Analytica raised suspicions about data-driven manipulation affecting Trump's decisions. There is also potential links with other power players. As we know, Trump was a businessman long before entering politics, which means he had dealings with international entities like Turkish and Azerbaijani oligarchs or Chinese banks. It begs the question, did these relationships influence his presidential decisions? Lastly, we can't talk about Trump without mentioning his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who played an influential role in the White House. His many responsibilities included shaping foreign policy initiatives, and his ties to governments like Israel and Saudi Arabia left some wondering where his true loyalties lay and how that may have affected U.S. foreign policy. In conclusion, in this section, to understand Trump's presidency, we need to examine the various forces and relationships he had throughout his time in office. While we can't say for sure who was really pulling the strings, this investigation gives us some valuable insights into potential players who might have been influencing Trump's policies for their own interests. So today, as we continue discussing the ever-changing political landscape, and specifically the future of the Make America Great Again, MAGA, movement. Now, if we were to see a second term for former President Donald Trump, what could that look like? Predicting any political figure's actions is tough, but we can use past behavior to guide us. Imagine if Trump were back in power. He would likely push forward with the MAGA agenda. You know, things like restricting immigration, negotiating trade deals, tackling the Affordable Care Act, and promoting nationalist economic policies. Of course, a lot would depend on how the Republican Party handles its internal conflicts and whether Democrats keep their legislative majority. MAGA followers could expect a focus on deregulation and less government intervention in business. As we saw during his first term, this might lead to short-term gains but potentially long-term instability for the U.S. as a whole. As always, Trump would probably continue using social media to connect with his base directly. That unfiltered approach has always been key to rallying support and loyalty. But let's talk about the safety and well-being of his supporters under Trump's leadership. Critics have pointed out that his divisive tactics have led to greater polarization among Americans. If Trump were back in power, there's concern that such rhetoric might further fuel cultural wars and negatively affect the country. We saw protests during his first term. Tensions between MAGA supporters and their opponents could rise. We need to think about potential risks and what this division could mean for individual safety as well as social cohesion in general. On the flip side, though, some MAGA followers may feel empowered or more secure with Trump in power again. It might represent a validation of their beliefs and values. In summary, predicting any political leader's actions or the impact on specific groups or society as a whole is tough. The main priority is really that any administration adheres to democratic principles while protecting everyone's safety and addressing critical issues. The Veritas Word, after assessing and viewing the turmoil in the U.S. political sections, both state and federal, the infighting and nonsense and blatant lying rhetoric of Republican politicians, will try to make an assessment of the U.S. future. Without a doubt, problems will be a part of the everyday political landscape with the MAGA following and the unhealthy-minded political leaders. However, as much as there will be unrest for a while, we predict that Trump will not be elected, but troubles will arise from his massive defeat and people and property will suffer. We will see property damage, personal injuries, and, sadly, people losing their lives. All because Trump wants power. Trump will be found guilty of his crimes and will be sentenced to home detention. Is this justice? Probably not. But having Trump sidelined for many years, not having his narcissistic presence and low intelligence of how to really run a country of people who only want to be free, will be a refreshing new beginning. Will opposing sides of the government battle? Yes, as always, but let's hope you get back to the democratic values on which America was built. This is the final countdown for Trump. Thank you for joining us on the Veritas Word Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion enlightening and thought-provoking. Our goal is to engage in meaningful conversations that explore a variety of topics and perspectives. To stay up to date with future episodes and engage with our community, be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on social media, and visit our sister website at the blog letters. Until next time, stay curious and keep the spirit of open dialogue alive, because the truth lies in seeking. Bye for now.